The Orioles are now 2-0 in the post-Brian Baker era after sweeping the doubleheader against the Mets on Thursday. And I'll recap both wins coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Friday, July 11th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap both games in the Orioles doubleheader sweep of the New York Mets. Get you the 5 things you need to know from game 1, including a great Charlie Morton start and a big swing from Gunnar Henderson to win it late off the bench. And then the 5 things you need to know from game 2, a nice recovery start from Tomoyuki Sugano. And we saw Alex Jackson put his name into Orioles history with the win on Thursday. And then we'll get you ready for Orioles Marlins this weekend at the Yard. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So the Orioles lost that heartbreaker to the Mets on Tuesday night, has 6-2 lead in the 8th. Brian Baker had a bad time in what turned out to be his final Orioles outing. They lost in extra innings. Then the storms and the thunder and the lightning and the rain and everything came on Wednesday. That game was postponed. So the Orioles had a scheduled split doubleheader at 12 o'clock and 5 o'clock for the final 2 games of this series against the Mets on Thursday. And wouldn't you know, they played some good baseball, won both games, won the series, swept the doubleheader, and are now back to just 8 games under 500. It's been a while since they've been even that close to 500. So let's begin with game 1. Now, if you're wondering, Connor, I am here. Where is the Brian Baker talk? Because the Orioles traded Brian Baker to the Tampa Bay Rays for a draft pick on Thursday morning. Well, I did a special all Brian Baker trade episode of the podcast on Thursday. You can get that in all of your podcast feeds, Apple, Spotify, whatever it may be. You can get it right here on YouTube as well. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. Make sure to go back and check out that one for all of your Brian Baker talk. But we are now talking about the post-Brian Baker era. And let's begin with game 1 of the doubleheader on Thursday. Final score in that one, Orioles 3 and Mets 1 as the O's win the first game of the double dip. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that O's game 1 victory. And the first thing you need to know is Charlie Morton was awesome again. And the game, it did not start out so well. It was single walk past ball in the top of the first. And all of a sudden, Morton's looking at second and third, no outs, with Soto, Alonso, Winker due up for the Mets. Not a good time. An early season, that version of Charlie Morton, the terrible April version of Charlie Morton, probably lets his start snowball on him from there. He lets both runs score, gives up a couple more. He's out of the game in the 3rd or 4th inning, and the Orioles lose by a lot. This current version of Charlie Morton, which has been so much better, strikes out Soto, strikes out Alonso, gets Winker to pop out, and puts up a 0 in that spot in the top of the first inning. And then he just continued to pitch well. The only blemish on his record was a Tyrone Taylor RBI double the other way in the 5th, came after a leadoff walk, put the Mets up 1-0 at the time. But after that double, he got Nimmo, he got Lindor, he walked Soto, and he got Alonso out to keep it a 1-0 game. In the 5th, he made some great pitches to get himself through the 6th. And it was another fantastic start for Morton. 6 innings, a 1-run ball, 4 hits, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks, no homers on 104 pitches, just 5 hard hit balls against him. He's lowered the ERA to 5.18 on the season. And the 3 walks were a little concerning. That was his most since June 7th. And just the second time he's walked at least 3 since April 26th. So, the command was a serious issue early in the year. It's been great lately. Command was a little more off than we've seen it lately in this start, but the stuff still played way up, and he still got the outs he needed. He got 9 whiffs on his curveball, once again threw it more than any other pitch to both righties and lefties, and he induced a lot more soft contact even than usual. That allowed him to kind of work around the walks and give up just the 1 run in 6 innings. The curveball still looks great. Fastball velocity was not as elite as it's been at times. It's still really good. And this stretch run continues. It's now 11 outings of just dominant baseball from Charlie Morton. In these last 11 outings, 51 and 2/3 innings, 45 hits, 15 earned runs, 60 strikeouts to 16 walks, only 3 homers, and a 2.61 ERA for Charlie Morton in that stretch. He continues to not just be great and maybe be the Orioles, not even maybe, definitely be the Orioles' best starting pitcher on this team in that stretch, but also as a rental player who's 41 and a free agent after this year, continues to look like a great trade chip. And at most, he's got 3 more starts before the deadline comes up on July 31st. As long as he doesn't completely tank the other way in those 3 games, teams are going to want Charlie Morton. And I think the Orioles should want to trade him away to somehow get something for him, which you thought never could have been the case. He's pitching like he's going to be maybe starting a playoff game for somebody the way he's looking right now. Second thing you need to know from the Game 1 win is that Grant Wolfram followed him with some outstanding stuff. Wolfram, the left-handed reliever, was recalled from AAA on Thursday to be the 27th man for the doubleheader. Remember, when you play a doubleheader, you get an extra person on the roster to make up for the fact that you got to play 2 games in one day. Generally, teams take it as a pitcher to use, and he'd been pretty good with Norfolk, 3.62 ERA, a much lower FIP, 27 and a third innings in AAA this season. Orioles got him in a small trade with the Brewers while he was in AAA back in April. He made a couple of relief outings with the Orioles in late April. He was sent back down around May 1st. And since he was demoted to AAA, 21 and 2/3 innings, 23 Ks, 5 walks, and a 2.08 ERA. And the Wolfram we saw on Thursday was not the Grant Wolfram we saw in April in his first 2 big league outings. He was, on Thursday, pumping 98 with his sinker, dotting the corners, great slider to lefties, unhittable curveball that he threw to righties. He got 8 whiffs on 17 swings total, 4 whiffs on 6 swings via that curveball. The righties had no idea what to do with that thing. It was 2 innings, 1 hit, 4 strikeouts, no walks, and no hard hit balls on 29 pitches for Wolfram. Just an incredible outing from the left-hander. His 4 strikeouts ties his season high from even AAA so far this year. And, I talked about this a little bit on the Brian Baker episode yesterday. We're not sure exactly what the roster move will be because Wolfram and Colin Selby were kind of both up as extra guys for the doubleheader on Thursday. Selby didn't end up pitching when he was active for that second game, but you have kind of a in the balance open bullpen spot right now with Brian Baker being traded to the Rays, and it's probably either going to be Wolfram or Selby who gets it for the time being. It should absolutely be Wolfram, not just because it gives him, an extra lefty, because Gregory Soto is the only lefty in the bullpen right now. But after that outing, let's give him some runway and put him in this bullpen. What a pickup that seems to be if he continues to pitch like this. Third thing you need to know from this one is that we really didn't see much from the Orioles offense for a while in this game. Left-hander David Peterson, who's having a great season for the Mets, got the start, and he pitched through 7 scoreless innings fairly easily in this game. It was more struggles against lefties for the Orioles. The O's did not even get a runner into scoring position against Peterson in this game. Now, they probably should have had one in the 4th, but Jordan Westberg got thrown out trying to go 1st to 3rd on a Ramon Laureano single. Don't really mind the aggressive base running, just didn't work out right there. I mean, the Orioles hit some ball hard. They did have 9 hard hit balls in 7+ innings against Peterson, but really nothing to show for it. He dominates. And then Colton Cowser singles off him the other way to lead off the 8th, and out comes Carlos Mendoza, the Mets manager. He pulls David Peterson, even after he had just been incredible, and that's when things flipped. Because the 4th thing you need to know from this Game 1 win is that Gunnar Henderson played pinch hit hero in the 8th inning. Now, Manzolino was trying to give him a half day off, sit him for one of the 2 games of the doubleheader. Figured with the lefty in there in Game 1, he put Henderson on the bench. Luis Vasquez got the start. He hasn't played much. He's kind of been the fill-in for Jorge Mateo as the utility infielder. But although he didn't have a hit, he made an absolutely dazzling run-saving play at shortstop in the 3rd inning to end the frame. That was, Vasquez just plays fantastic defense. I really love his game. That was a great play, but Peterson comes out, gives up the single to Cowser, nobody out in the 8th. Mets still leading 1-0. Up comes the righty Luis Vasquez. The Mets go to one of their right-handed relievers in Ryan Stanek, and it became an easy time for Tony Manzolino to say, all right, Gunnar, can you come at least pinch hit for me, play shortstop for the rest of this game? Vasquez goes out. Henderson comes in, and kind of a mistake maybe by Mendoza here. Peterson was only at 90 pitches and was just carving up the Orioles even up after giving up that single to Cowser. I don't know why you go to the righty Stanek there, because even though you quote unquote would have the matchups with Luis Vasquez and Kobe Mayo and Jacob Stallings, the next three hitters due up, the Orioles had both Gunnar Henderson and Ryan O'Hearn on the bench. And you got to know they're going to go to those pinch hitters for two of Vasquez, Mayo, and Stallings. So you might as well just go to a lefty, which forces Mancelino to either put in those guys lefty-lefty where they struggle, or just keep the righties, Vasquez and Mayo and Stallings, who are much lesser hitters, in the game there. You should either just keep Peterson in as the lefty as he's rolling, or bring in a lefty reliever. That was not a good managerial move by Mendoza, and it backfired because Stanix hung a 2-1 slider to Gunnar Henderson, and he knew what to do with it. Just launching that thing into the flag court for a 2-run pinch hit homer to put the Orioles up 2-1. Just Gunnar's third career hit as a pinch hitter, obviously because he's been playing every day, doesn't get a lot of chances to pinch hit, and it was his first career pinch hit home run. And for the Orioles, that was their first go-ahead pinch hit homer in the 8th inning or later of a game since September 28th of 2016, the famous Hyun-Soo Kim 2-run homer off Roberto Osuna in the 9th inning in Toronto that flipped a 2-1 game into a 3-2 Orioles lead, which basically became the defining game that got them into the postseason in 2016. Now we know what happened in that postseason in Toronto, but that homer basically got the O's into the playoffs that year, essentially. First pinch hit, go-ahead homer in the 8th or later since then. That was a nice memory to come up, and I certainly watched that video after seeing that stat. And then the Orioles added on more in that 8th inning. Stanton kept walking guys. The Orioles loaded the bases, and a Laureano sac fly made it a 3-1 game, got him a little bit of insurance as well. But for Gunnar Henderson, not only his first pinch hit homer, but Gunnar's first 8th inning or later home run that flipped the score. So a homer where he came up, the Orioles were losing, he hit it out and gave the O's the lead in the 8th inning or later, since he hit a 2-run homer to flip the score in the 8th inning off of Brent Suter of the Rockies at Camden Yards back on August 25th of 2023. Why was that home run notable, besides just giving the Orioles the lead and giving them a win? That was the game where right after that homer in the bottom of the 8th, that was the game Felix Bautista got hurt in the top of the 9th inning. But the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 3-1 win in Game 1 of the doubleheader over the Mets on Thursday is that Felix pitched, but he didn't get hurt this time. Came out there in the 9th and went 1-2-3 against the Mets' order to lock down the save, and he threw 8 splitters, which was his most since May 31st. Only twice this season has he thrown more than 8 splitters, and that was noticeable because he had that weird stretch last week where he went 2 straight outings without throwing a single splitter. Obviously, what has been over the past couple of years his best swing and miss, his best strikeout pitch, one of the best swing and miss pitches in all of Major League Baseball. It was very weird to see him not throw it. Good to see him kind of leaning on that pitch again on Thursday and helping him to success and helping the Orioles to a win. So they knew that they weren't going to get swept in the series, and they knew they were not going to get swept in the doubleheader, but you'd like to win a series against the Mets, and you'd like to do something the Orioles hadn't done in 9 years, which is sweep a doubleheader. Kind of crazy it's been 9 years. Well, they broke that streak with another win in Game 2, and I'll tell you how they did it coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's at supplyhouse.com. So the Orioles got Game 1 of this doubleheader, and then they got Game 2 to win the series and complete the doubleheader sweep. The Orioles winning the second game against the Mets by a score of 7-3. They win the series. They are now 42-50 on the season. And as you peek at the wild card standings, Let's see. Did the Mariners throw this no-hitter here? They did not. The Mariners lead 5-3. Brian Wu had a no-hitter into the 8th inning that was broken up. Mariners lead 5-3 in the 9th against the Yankees. If they win, the Orioles will remain 6.5 back of the final wildcard spot. Or excuse me, they will remain 7 back, I should say, of the final wildcard spot. If somehow the Yankees turn it around, it'll be 6 back. For the Orioles, still not in a great spot, but they are at 42-50 on the season. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that 7-3 Orioles victory over the Mets in Game 2 of the doubleheader. And the first thing you need to know is Tomoyuki Sugano was much, much better in this one, at least in the box score. Sugano goes out there against New York, goes 6 innings of 3-run ball, 4 hits, 2 strikeouts, 3 walks, no homers on 99 pitches. And the big one, just 5 hard hit balls against a guy who's been getting hit really, really hard recently and now has a 4.44 ERA on the season. First quality start for Sugano since June 3rd in Seattle when he allowed just 1 run over 7 innings of work. In the 5 starts since that one, 22 1/3 innings, 8.87 ERA, 17 Ks, 8 walks, and 7 home runs allowed for Sugano. He had a quality start in 6 of his first 12 starts to begin the year. That put him at a 3.04 ERA, and then it had been a disaster since then, but this was much better. Now, there were still command issues. The 3 walks tied his season high. He had just a 46% in-zone rate. He's usually at least 10% better than that when he's good. He was still really fighting that splitter command on his best pitch, really his only true swing and miss pitch. He was not commanding well, but what helped him was the sweeper. He used it as his most used pitch. It was really good against the righties in the Mets order on Thursday. And this was a game where, just like Charlie Morton in Game 1, it could have gone off the rails for Sugano. He allows a single and a double to open the game, and both runs did score on an RBI grounder and a sac fly to make it 2-0 Mets in the first, but he limited the damage. It could have been worse. And then he settled back in. He was able to put up zeros in the second and third, give up a 2-out run in the fourth, but got a 0 in the fifth, kept it a 3-3 game. Now, I was very surprised he came back out for the sixth. It was 3-3. He had stranded 2 runners in each the 4th and 5th innings just to keep it 3-3. He was already at 91 pitches. He was struggling with command. He was coming off some bad starts. I wouldn't have minded if they just got him out of there. But I understand it was the second game of a doubleheader. Now, you had only used Wolfram and Bautista out of the bullpen in Game 1, so you had a fairly rested bullpen, but you've just traded Baker. You're kind of in a weird spot, so I understand you want a little bit more from Sugano. I was honestly just surprised that they did that. Now, it probably helped a little bit that the O's got him 2 runs in the bottom of the 5th to make it 5-3. But he comes back out in the 6th, and he went vintage Sugano, 1-2-3 on 8 pitches to get through that 6th inning. That's what we saw so much early in the year and just haven't seen those quick, efficient innings lately. So it was awesome to see him end his start like that. And hopefully this is a start of an upswing again for Sugano as he comes back out after the All-Star break, but a really good way to finish his quote-unquote first half of the season. Second thing you need to know from the Game 2 doubleheader win is that Alex Jackson had a day in his first Orioles start. Jackson, who the Orioles sent cash to the Yankees for last week. He was the catcher in AAA for New York, in AAA Scranton. Former top prospect, first-round pick, still only 29 years old. He's played in a solid chunk, about 125 big league games. Only has hit 132 in those career big league games. Not much of a hitter, but always has good defensive skills and has some pop at the plate. Just never been able to put it together in the big leagues. But the Orioles had Gary Sanchez get hurt again. They had 4 catchers on the injured list. They were only sitting there with Jacob Stallings. We've explained time and time again why it just wasn't the time to call up Samuel Basallo. So it was Alex Jackson time to be the backup catcher. And he did come off the bench to catch the 10th inning of Tuesday night's game. That made him the 6th catcher to appear for the Orioles this year. That is tying the franchise record, 6 catchers in a season. But because you always want to start a different catcher in each game of a doubleheader, he gets the start in Game 2, and he made the most of it. His first Orioles at bat in the bottom of the 2nd inning, he bloops in an RBI double into right field off of Brandon Waddell as the Mets were doing some sort of weird bullpen game against Orioles legend Brandon Waddell. So that made it 2-1. Jackson's first Orioles at bat is an RBI double. Then to lead off the 6th, he hits a ball really hard, lines a leadoff double into right center field. That started a 2-run rally as the Orioles kind of pulled away in that 6th inning. He's played 126 big league games. Just the 7th multi-hit game of his career. and just his second game with multiple doubles, even multiple extra base hits. The other one was July 12th of last year when he was a member of the Tampa Bay Rays. And I thought he also looked really good receiving, framing, just defensively behind the plate. If the Orioles get to a point where, Handley and Trump and Gary aren't ready to come back, but Adley Rutschman comes back, so you kind of have to choose between Jacob Stallings and Alex Jackson to be your backup catcher, I wouldn't mind keeping around Alex Jackson a little bit longer just to have that kind of former prospect depth on your team. Wouldn't absolutely hate it if he won out over Stallings. We're not at that point yet. You got 4 catchers on the IL. That's down the road, but certainly liked at least this game from Alex Jackson. Third thing you need to know from that win on Thursday to end the day is that the Orioles scored also in a lot of different ways. Mentioned Alex Jackson being involved somewhat, but after the Jackson RBI double in the second inning, very next pitch, Jordan Westburg hits a 2-run homer over the big wall in left field to put the Orioles up 3-2. It went 110 off the bat, made it his second hardest hit ball of the 2025 season. Then they got 2 runs in the 5th inning, got a Colton Cowser RBI single on a changeup away. That's a pitch he's always struggled with, so that was a good sign. And then Ramon Arias brings a run home on an error. Brett Beatty just boots the ball at third base that makes it 5-3. And hey, you need some luck to win these games. The Orioles got some in the 5th. And then in the 6th inning, they loaded the bases and they didn't score with a hit with runners in scoring position, but they put the ball in play. And the Orioles' big issue has been all the strikeouts with runners in scoring position this year. They're putting the ball in play a lot more lately. Jordan Westburg hits an infield grounder. Alex Jackson's able to scoot home, show some speed, and score from third. Ramon Laureano beats out what could have been a double play ball to get an RBI fielder's choice later in the inning, make it 7-3. Just put it in play. Got some team speed, some athleticism, some good things can happen. And it certainly did for the Orioles offense, putting up 7 in game 2. Fourth thing you need to know from that win is the bullpen came in and closed things out. After Sugano was done, Andrew Kittredge gave the Orioles a 1-2-3 7th with a 4-run lead. Kittredge has been great lately. He has not allowed a base runner in his last 6 appearances. That's 6 2/3, no hits, no runs, no walks, and 5 strikeouts. He's in an interesting spot because, he missed 2 months with the knee injury. He is 35 years old. He does have a $9 million team option for 2026. The O's could trade him. They could not. I'm kind of intrigued, but his value is going up with how well he is pitching lately. Gregory Soto had a 1-2-3 inning in the 8th, including a nasty strikeout of Juan Soto on an awesome painted slider. Soto's allowed a run in just 2 of his last 17 outings. He also threw his 2 hardest pitches of the year, threw a sinker at 99.5 miles an hour, then followed up with a sinker at 99.6 miles an hour. So he's certainly fired up, another potential trade piece. And then Seranthony Dominguez did allow a hit and a walk, but finished it out with a 99-mile-per-hour fastball for a strikeout, put up a 0 in the 9th to close out that 7-3 win. All 3 of those guys are kind of being showcased beyond Brian Baker for the deadline right now. All 3 could be kept. All 3 could be traded. I would think at least 2 of them probably do get dealt, but all 3 could be. It's kind of interesting to see them just go 0-0-0 to finish out that game, just what the doctor ordered for the Orioles. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 7-3 win over the Mets in game 2 of the doubleheader on Thursday is that the Orioles finally swept a doubleheader. For the first time since June 25th of 2016, the Orioles swept a doubleheader. That was the longest streak of any team in Major League Baseball between doubleheaders they've played without getting a sweep in any of them. The second time we've referenced something, first time since 2015 on this podcast. June 25th, 2016 in Baltimore, the Orioles beat the Rays in both games of a doubleheader. They won the first one 5-0. They got 7 2/3 scoreless innings from Kevin Gausman in that game. And in game 2, they won 8-6, had a late comeback in the 7th. Chris Davis had a go-ahead RBI single to give the O's the lead. A couple of blasts from the past there, but crazy that they went 9. And it's not like they've played an insane amount of doubleheaders, but a solid amount of doubleheaders in those 9 years and just never swept one is very odd, but it was nice to see him take down that Mets team. And listen, Tuesday's loss was awful and disappointing and everything in between, but think about it this way. The Orioles should have swept this series against a playoff team in the Mets. They were a good reliever having a random, just complete blow-up outing away from sweeping the Mets in this 3-game series. They are playing better baseball. They have been since June. As I keep saying, I still feel they dug themselves just too big of a hole at the beginning of the year, but this kind of looks like a completely different baseball team right now, just playing better and better as the year goes on. Do they have enough time to make it up? Probably not, but it's not. We're still on July 11th. It is not impossible for the Orioles. And next up, they got to keep winning games. and they're playing a team they should beat in the Marlins. But the Marlins have been red hot lately, hotter even than the Orioles. We'll preview the O's and the Fish to finish out the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. And Game Time, it is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for exciting upcoming Orioles games. How about tonight? The O's and the Fish. I mean, this Orioles team, they're playing a little bit better. The Fish playing better. But you want to see the Kyle Stowers and Connor Newcomb return to Baltimore? You maybe want to see me because I'll be at the ballpark tonight? Get a ticket on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. That is LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So before we get out of here on a Friday, just want to quickly preview Orioles and Marlins coming up this weekend at the Yard. I'll be there for Game 1 tonight, so feel free to come by and say hello if you see me at the ballpark. Orioles and Marlins, same record. Marlins also coming in at 42-50 on the season. They're sitting in third in the NL East because of how the Braves and the Nats have been. But the Fish are red hot. Marlins 12-4 in their last 16 games. That stretch included an 8-game winning streak right at the end of June. In that 16-game stretch, they are fourth in the league in runs scored, sixth in batting average, fifth in team ERA, sixth in strikeout percentage. They have the best bullpen ERA at 1.85 in that stretch. Lake, Behar, Anthony Bender, Josh Simpson, Ronnie Henriquez, and Valente Beozo have all been just locked down fantastic out of that Marlins pen. Henriquez, their closer now with nasty stuff. Anthony Bender's like a sidewinder who's impossible to hit. They've been really, really good lately. Now, overall in offense the entire season, 19th in runs scored, 21st in team WRC+. They've still been kind of lacking. Now, Kyle Stowers has been great. He was the Marlins named the only All-Star. He had a red-hot first 2 months, had a terrible June, but he's been red-hot again lately in July, so Stowers' return will be cool. Augustine Ramirez has been one of the best young hitting catchers in baseball. He's been fun. And Xavier Edwards and Otto Lopez, their two contact-oriented middle infielders, have been really good lately. And Liam Hicks, their other catcher, has really been the only other hitter who's had success at any point this year. So to preview the series, Friday, 7:05 on MASN, the righty Edward Cabrera takes the hill for the Marlins against Dean Kramer. Cabrera's got a 3.33 ERA and 15 starts this year coming off injury, but he's been awesome since he's settled in. A 2.11 ERA for the young righty in his last 11 starts. He throws a lot of changeups at 94 miles an hour with a hard upper 90s sinker, and his curveball and slider get a lot of whiffs. Going to be a tough matchup for the Orioles. Dean Kramer coming off a bad start in Atlanta, but otherwise been pretty good lately. Hopefully he can keep that up. Saturday at 4:05 on MASN, right-hander Jansen Junk goes for the Marlins against Trevor Rogers. Junk, who the Marlins signed to a minor league deal this year. They called him up in late May, and he's been awesome. 43 and a third innings, 3.12 ERA with a 2.00 FIP. This has not been some sort of fluke. He's been great. Has 2 bad starts with 5 earned runs allowed in each of them. But in his last 2 starts, 12 total innings, 2 earned runs allowed. He doesn't have really a great pitch stuff-wise, but he throws 94. He's got a good wide mix. We'll see if the O's can jump on him. And for Rogers, he's been amazing. Can he keep it rolling against his old Marlins friends? Hopefully he can, and he can win the trade for the Orioles, especially when he faces Stowers and Connor Newcomb as well. And then Sunday at 1:35 on MASN to finish out the series, another young righty in Yuri Perez goes for the Marlins against Brandon Young for the Orioles. Perez returned from Tommy John surgery in June. He's got a 4.00 ERA and 6 starts, but his last 2 starts have looked like the old Yuri Perez, the old number 1 pitching prospect in baseball. Last 2 starts, 11 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 15 strikeouts, and 1 walk. He throws 98 with a wipeout slider and a really good changeup. Watch out for that. And for Brandon Young, who was awesome Tuesday through that immaculate inning against the Mets, his best big league start, Hopefully he can keep that up in the final game before the All-Star break. And then I'll be back on Monday to recap this series between the Orioles and the Marlins, but I'll also be here even earlier, and that is on Sunday, because the first 3 rounds of the MLB draft, they are taking place on Sunday night. And just as I've done the last couple of years, for the first couple of Orioles picks, I'm going to go live. So make sure you're tuned in right here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. I'm going to go live after the Orioles pick 19th in the draft, break down who they selected and why, and give you the scouting report. And then remember, because of the Brian Baker trade, the Orioles also have the 30th, 31st, and 37th picks. So after they make that stretch, I'm going to go live again with a separate live show right here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube page to break down those 3 picks. They also pick 58th, 69th, and one more time. They've 7 picks on Sunday. The rest of those picks will be recapped on Tuesday's episode, but I will be going live, so make sure you're right here and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel to get those live draft reactions for the first couple of rounds and the comp picks Sunday, and then be back Monday for an Orioles-Marlins series recap. But until all of that, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.